This is a podcast by the News Minute, and you are listening to South Central.
Hello and welcome to South Central, a TNM podcast where we put South at the center. Today is the 27th of November and we are recording at 3 p.m. I'm your host, Dhanya Rajendran. In this week's South Central, we look at Gautam Adani's indictment by the United States of America and the Jagan Mohan Reddy connection. We'll also look at the Supreme Court's decision to grant bail to actor Siddique in a sexual assault case and whether the Tamil and Malayalam film industries are right to push back against reviews by audiences and social media influencers. Joining me in the studio are my co-hosts, Pooja Prasanna, the reporting head of the News Minute, and as someone wrote as a comment on South Central, their new intellectual crush. Other co-host, Leena Raghunath, journalist and lawyer who's worked with the Caravan and the Supreme Court Observer. Joining from the Bengaluru studio is Nadika, a teacher, writer, film critique. What other introductions should I add?
Tech writer.
I'm just Nadika, writer.
Very humble. And joining us is also M. Rajshekhar, an award-winning journalist who is here to explain to us the whole Adani deal. I would say Rajshekhar is one of the few journalists in India who have done extensive reporting on Adani, on various businesses, and of course on the solar sector himself. So who else to get here for the show than Rajshekhar? Thank you, Rajshekhar, for joining us.
I'm panicking after that introduction.
You should. That's the whole point of this introduction. A few announcements before we go to the main headlines of the week. We have a student subscription. As you know, as a subscription-based news organization, we take subscriptions very seriously because that allows us to function, to survive and thrive. But if you're students and you cannot afford the subscription, then you have to show us a valid student ID. Write to members@thenewsminute.com. You get a 50% off. Now, if you're wondering, I don't have even that much money, fear not. Use Google Pay or any other thing on your parents' mobile phone and get the subscription done. Remember, every month once we'll invite a TNM News Laundry subscriber to the South Central podcast, and you can discuss with us about your research, about a project you're doing, about a review you've read, whatever it is. So write to us at southcentral@thenewsminute.com.
Andhra Pradesh police look out for director Ram Gopal Varma. 3 Andhra police teams are spread out looking for him. 2 of them are in Hyderabad, 1 in Tamil Nadu, and they're looking for him, saying that he's been missing. Why are they looking for Ram
So there are
Gopal
cases filed against him for a few tweets that he did in which he insulted Pawan Kalyan and a couple of others. But I think the anger which the TDP and even Janasena has towards him is also because of this movie he did called Vyuham, in which he had insulted Pawan Kalyan, Nara Lokesh and others. And Ram Gopal Varma actually has put out a video saying that why should the police be behind me? Why can't I be questioned virtually? Why should I be arrested for this? And these are tweets which was a year ago. What is the necessity to push for an arrest now?
నాకు ఒక నోటీస్ వచ్చింది. నేను ఒక రిప్లై ఇచ్చాను, ఫలానా చోట ఫలానా తారీఖు నేను వస్తాను. అప్పటికి నాకు జరుగుతున్న పని ఒక ఆన్గోయింగ్ స్కెడ్యూల్ ఉంది కాబట్టి, నాకు ఫిలిం వర్క్ ఉంది కాబట్టి అవ్వలేదు. అండ్ ఇట్ ఈస్ వేరే ప్రొడ్యూసర్కి చేస్తాను, ఆ ప్రొడ్యూసర్కి నష్టం వస్తుంది కాబట్టి నేను మళ్ళీ టైం అడిగాను. ఇదేంటి కేసు, ఇదేం అర్జెంట్ కేసు అంటే 1 year తర్వాత ట్వీట్ చూసిన అతనికి 1 weekలో అన్నీ అయిపోవాలనేది ఏమన్నా మీనింగ్ ఉంటుంది అసలు దానికి? సో విచ్ బేసిక్లీ మీన్స్ ఇట్ ఈస్ బీయింగ్ డన్ ఫర్ పర్పసెస్ అదర్ దెన్ ద urgency of the case.
So Dhanya, we have in our last episode discussed the Kasturi case here again, and we have talked about how political vendetta turns into going after these kind of. So there are similar or graver offences in the same area that you'll find, but some are penalized, some are not. And in this kind of case where Ram Gopal Varma is available, he's saying that he'll come for a hearing and but an on-camera hearing, and they're sending police long distance to capture the guy and saying that he's absconding. This is all just how political vendetta plays out in India when a case.
So the last episode, what we were discussing is that in these kind of cases, the arrest can actually be avoided. I mean, the tweet is already there. You can investigate and go for a charge sheet. Why arrest the person? Because there is already digital proof of what happened, right?
Yeah. And I just want to add, I can't believe they're wasting that kind of police force in a country where we have so few of them. They have sent a team to Coimbatore because he tweeted saying, I've reached Coimbatore. but there's still a lookout notice. Karnataka government must take responsibility to organize Tipu Jayanti, says Tipu's descendant. His name is Sahibzada Syed Mansoor Ali Tipu, and he's alleged that the Congress government is not granting permission to celebrate Tipu Jayanti. It was celebrated a few days ago, but I think what he's referring to is Tipu Jayanti being a state celebrated festival, which the Siddaramaiah government started in 2015 and it went on till 2018. And of course, after the coalition government came in 2018, when Kumaraswamy was the chief minister, he stopped celebration. It has to be noted that in 2015, there were large-scale violence in Kodagu particularly, and people were killed as well. But the government insisted.
But is the price that Siddaramaiah paid for actually celebrating Tipu Jayanti a bit too much? Is that why they're reluctant?
It is. And also, since some other government already stopped, they don't want to bring it back. It'll draw unnecessary attention. Next one from Tamil Nadu, actor Dhanush sues Nayanthara before Madras High Court.
The deed is done.
Yes. Rahul and Priyanka Gandhi to lead the agitation in Parliament against centre or union government's neglect of Wayanad. We have an in-house Wayanad
No, but
expert.
today the news is out that the government has relented to give some. Dhanya, you would have more on that, right?
No, Nirmala Sitharaman has basically said that there would be a Wayanad package which would be announced. Just to tell Nadika and Rajshekhar, you can step in anytime. So the controversy is that Kerala government wants Wayanad landslide to be declared as a national disaster. The NDA is saying that, look, from the UPA times, we have not had any precedent where we are announcing a national disaster. It's only a calamity of severe nature. But we are not sure if Wayanad landslide is called even that.
So last time such a calamity of severe nature was Uttarakhand floods or the Andhra cyclone,
the 2014 Andhra cyclone.
Right. And so this doesn't measure up to them as a disaster of that impact. Whereas why Kerala is pushing or Wayanad is pushing for such is because they'll then get 3:1 ratio funds released from the central government, where the central government is supposed to give the 3% share or the 3 times the share of what the state government is putting into the relief efforts. So I think that is significant for Wayanad to tide over this.
This was also the thing last with the Chennai floods of the last couple of years, no? When the Tamil Nadu government had specifically asked it to be declared a national emergency, national calamity or whatever, and then there was some sort of fight between the state and the central, the union governments, and or what constitutes and how much money to give, and one union saying, yeah, we've already released the money, and then some people calculating and saying, no, you've not even sent half the money you said you were going to send. All of that was happening in the last couple of years.
So one significant but unrelated thing I want to say is that at the News Minute, we only use the word union government. We don't use the word central government because it sort of indicates that the central government is the center of everything, right? When it's actually not.
Yeah.
Telangana Chief Minister Revant Reddy rejects Adani's 100 crores donation to State University. I think we'll not discuss this because we have an entire section dedicated to Adani. Moving on to Sambal in Uttar Pradesh. Sambal remains tense over mosque survey, internet shutdown to continue. For those who are not aware of what has happened, so far 27 people have been arrested, 25 men and 2 women. There have been 7 FIRs that have been registered. There was violence that broke out, and there is actually a little bit of ambiguity on how the 4 people who died were killed. Is it through police firing, which is what many eyewitnesses have said? But police sources that have been quoted extensively by some sections of the media say that it was friendly fire. Basically, the protesters were armed and they killed each other, is what it says. But whatever it is, the fact is that there is a legal aspect to this.
This is very interesting that I wanted to point out. The opening episode of South Central we did about DYC, that is the outgoing CJI Chandrachud's legacy.
DYC sound like KFC. Can you say the full name?
Sorry, that's part of being a legal journalism newsroom term.
Chandrachud.
Yeah, DY Chandrachud's legacy. And I think one of the most 2 most damning things we are going to discuss here, I think, of his legacy. One is his refusal to order a Hindenburg investigation, changing it into a joint SIT investigation. And second, I think, is this what he has done with the Places of Worship Act. It was decided that act was brought in to say that no more Babri kind of situation arises where Places of Worship Act, as it was during the independence time, stays in whatever religion that has been worshipping there, and there is no more changes of claims in court. But then he went ahead and said that there is, in the interest of balance between the parties who's claiming this, let's examine. And then he threw open this floodgate of places of worship being, re-examined, and then how far will you go digging? Like, when Farundhati is one of the early essays during the Babri issue, where she says you dig a mosque and then you get a temple underneath it. You dig a temple underneath, you will get a Buddhist monastery under it. You dig under that, then there is some tribal worship deity under it. How far will you go digging in this country? Because the country has so much of history of what and how people worshipped and lived. So how far will you go? This will be endless court cases and court sitting on who worshipped where and how much time uninterrupted worship was allowed in that place. So it's a sad state of affairs what's going on with Places of Worship Act that is happening right now. The very reason why that act was brought in, and now the courts have stepped in to set that aside.
One nation, one subscription. Government's 6,000 crore plan to give varsities access to 13,000 research journals on one platform. This will basically give central payments to 13 publishers, where institutions can continue to use their own budgets to subscribe to publishers not covered under the scheme.
Can you imagine like what kind of research journals will be under this? That's the first horror. And the second is this clear case of plagiarism by the union government, because our subscription with News Laundry is called one subscription, 2 platforms, and we call it Game Changer. Narendra Modi has also called it Game Changer.
Modi ji, come up with your own idea. Stop stealing from us.
I think they should bring back Venkaiah Naidu for coming up with acronyms for all of these things.
You can't beat him. Actually, there's one person who can give him a run for his money. He's called Vatal Nagraj. If you don't know,
correct.
Go look him up.
Please do not, the world that's seeing me, do not think I'm capitulating to the other side. But no, it's not a bad idea per se, if they can manage to keep the academic rigor in it. And it's, even if it has a right wing or a Hindutva lean to it, it's easy to then know that there is the bias and then do your research based on it, as long as the academic rigor of those publications, the peer reviewing and all that is maintained. I don't have...
No, we have no problem with that. We only have an issue with stealing the Game Changer.
Yeah.
Yes, the name.
Yeah.
Okay, so we'll now go into the discussions this week. The first discussion is going to be on the Adani Indictment by the United States of America. But I want to keep focus on the Andhra Pradesh connection, because what has been said now, if you look at what's happening, they said 2,200 crores was promised as bribe, was offered as bribes, of which a large portion, around 1,750 crores, was supposed to have been offered to just Andhra Pradesh. Quickly for our listeners and our viewers, Rajshekhar, can you tell us what this whole controversy is about? The Solar Energy Corporation of India is the one who has the arrangements with both state discoms, Adani Energy and Azure, right?
I think the SEC charge sheet is a very important document because it answers one of the great pending questions about Adani. We've been sort of, over the last 20 years, we've known that a part of his growth has come through huge borrowings. A part of his growth has come through acquisitions. There have always, and we've always been told by the media that he's getting a lot of political favors, right? You look at Indian journalism and you'll find scores of examples where Adani got preferential treatment from the union government, state governments, and so on. What we were not able to find so far was a quid pro quo. What was Adani giving anything back in turn to the politicians, right? And this money trail is what was missing so far, partly because the way global business gets conducted today is a very, very opaque system, right? Plotting money flows, rent extraction is very hard. What the SEC order does is it finds us a quid pro quo. This is the first quid pro quo that I have seen where money has flowed from Adani to political leaders. Remember, in electoral bonds, nobody found Adani's name in there, right? So that is, I think, a part of the context here. In this particular deal, so the way solar sector PPAs are given out is that you have a bunch of companies, domestic and international, coming into the Indian market and wanting to set up solar parks. A lot of these guys are very uncomfortable dealing with Indian discoms. Indian discoms are distribution companies are very, very cash strapped. Usually not the best of organizations in terms of settling their bills promptly. And therefore, when India was trying to attract investment into the power sector, we said that we'll create an insulating organization, which will be SECI. SECI will bid out for solar capacity. And once firms win those bids, it will thereafter go to state governments and say that, okay, I have people who are willing to set up a 1 gigawatt plant. Do you want this power? And once they find a buyer, you sign an agreement saying that the state government will sign an agreement with SECI saying that मेरे को ये power मांगता है. And SECI will then sort of talk to the project developer and say that, okay, I've found a buyer for you. Please go forth and set up your plant. In this case, what happened is a little puzzling. First and foremost, SECI gave out a tender for a manufacturing linked tender. I'm not very sure where SECI gets the authority to start setting up, to start telling firms to start putting up solar module and cell manufacturing facilities. Okay, 1. 2, the tender is put out, 2 firms win, Adani and Azure. The price they bid is 2.92. It's higher than what most bids at the time are. State discoms decide not to buy. The fact that this bid price is high is not a surprise, because unlike other solar developers who are only setting up solar panels and solar facilities, solar panels essentially, this project has Adani and Azure also investing in factories for making solar cells and solar modules. The amount of money you put in is bound to be higher, and therefore the tariff you're going to ask is bound to be higher. What happens in this case, therefore, is the price that they sort of conclude is viable for them is higher than what other PPAs are netting for SECI. And therefore, state discoms are not interested. At this point, instead of annulling the bid, SECI sits on the bid for well over a year, and the developers, Azure and Adani, both of them figure that this manufacturing linked tender is actually very profitable for us. Azure felt that it would make something like $2 billion over 20 years or something like that. Adani has said that he would have made about $1 billion in profits. They didn't want to give up this project. So they went, and essentially the SEC's contention is that they gave a total of 2,200 crores to 5 governments, J&K, Tamil Nadu, Andhra, Chhattisgarh and Orissa. And in return for that, the political leadership, I'm sure, agreed to buy expensive power for their state. Okay, it's that textbook thing where you have a private gain, where the political leadership makes money, the project developer makes money, and the costs are then spread out across the population of these states.
SECI talks to private companies like Adani. They manufacture and also they provide the solar power, and the discoms like in Tamil Nadu and Andhra Pradesh are the ones who buys this discom. But the price is so much that SECI, instead of asking the private players to either bring down the prices, just what US is saying is that instead you offered bribes to these governments and then they bought the power. Now, you said that this is the first time that Adani has been accused of paying money, right? But again, this is only alleged quid pro quo. And now what Gautam Adani is saying, in fact, he has filed in the stock exchange that there is no charge of bribery against me, that I have been charged on the other counts.
Yeah, but the quid pro quo is, if the SEC charge sheet is upheld, there's a very clear quid pro quo, right? He's making the payment to a state government which is buying expensive power from him. And right now there's a lot of muddying going on, talking about how this is actually not costly. It was the most prudential deal we could have found. But those claims are not really holding up very well. The first defense from the former Andhra government was that we did not sign a deal with Adani. We have no direct ties with him, right? And that then got sort of countered, saying that yes, but given the architecture of India's renewable sector, you were always going to do the tie-up with SECI. And in any case, when we look at the purchase agreement, the names of Adani and Azure are in there. One. Two, thereafter, we've been having a lot of fun.
Only person who
One
has
of the things that
fun reading indictments is perhaps Rajshekhar. He's having a lot of fun, yes.
No, it's actually fun because there's an absurdity to this right now. Okay. One of the things that the letter from Jagan says is that, this project had been given a special waiver of state power transmission charges. Okay. Typically, it's like saying that if you have a power project in a solar array in, say, Rajasthan, and your power is being consumed in Andhra, your power will be passing through each of the intervening states. You will be paying a charge for transmission each of those states. So now Jagan says that for this project, those charges have been waived. Which, if he's true in saying this, then the obvious question that comes is, why was this project being favored when there are so many solar parks coming up across the country? Right? From what I know, based on something I was writing 3 months ago, power transmission waivers have been given to all solar parks. Okay. The question is about the cutoff, 2025 or later or earlier, whatever it is. So basically, any power project would have gotten this waiver in any case. And therefore, this contention of Jagan isn't really valid. The third defense was that subsequent SECI bids have been netting a price higher than 2.43, and therefore this bid was in Andhra's interest. This is again a really incomplete argument. Okay. Globally, solar cell prices have continued to fall very, very dramatically. Therefore, the price of solar modules should be going down, and therefore the price of solar power should go down. What's happened in India is that we have imposed import tariffs on Chinese panels. Okay. These came into force last year, with India essentially sort of saying that you cannot import solar panels from countries like China and use them in this country. You have to only buy panels which are made locally. With that, you have seen a near doubling of the cost of solar panels in this country. And therefore, the price that discoms would be getting in these tenders was bound to increase in any case. So, this is getting a little dense, but what I want to say is that there are multiple levels of dubious decisions taking place in this sector. Okay, every firm making solar modules in India right now imports cells from China and assembles them and sells those as panels. If the price of a Chinese cell was 9 cents a watt and is now down to 4 cents a watt, you would expect even domestic module prices to come down. A cell is like 60% of the cost of a module. What you have in India is the inverse. Since there is import protection, right, a cartel is starting to take shape in solar module manufacturing. And therefore, our module prices are actually going up. It's like saying that there is one scam happening over there in terms of solar module manufacturing, because of which prices are being pushed up. And that hike in prices is now being used to justify a second outrage being perpetrated on the people of this country, which is that some politicians take 2,000 crores upfront and justify the fact that the people of the country are going to be paying higher power charges thereafter. And the worrying thing here is that once you normalize 2.43 as opposed to say 2.19 or 2.0, Subsequent bids will sort of take this as a benchmark price. So your solar power will actually keep getting costlier because you created a new floor price.
Today, even in mainstream media, when I'm looking at how this is being covered and other online places, there is very few pockets of independent media who actually talks about this and goes in depth and tries to break it up like what you are doing and telling us what is really wrong here.
I think that's the point that most people miss out on. Every time there is a scam surrounding Adani that comes out, the first response of those in power, the mainstream media that you were talking about, and a lot of people are like, why are you all very jealous? So what if he's doing well? So what if he's making money? He's making money and
Out
it's
of your
costing
pocket.
you
Yeah.
out of your
Yeah.
pocket. The same argument also holds good for, the Hindenburg report. And the same thing also is applicable to the Tangitco scam, right? For those who are not aware of what this is, I don't know if we can call it a scam. It's an allegation at this point. So we'll be very careful in how we phrase this. But the allegation was that in 2014, Adani Group was supplying coal to Tamil Nadu government. And it was coal that was coming from Indonesia to India. Now it went through a very long route. It went through Singapore, British Virgin Islands and all of that. And magically coal that was $28 something became $91 when it came to Tamil Nadu, right? So that inflation happened through each country that it passed. And what was passed off as high quality coal was actually very low calorific value. That is how the quality of the coal is measured. Now, in this, two things happened. One, everybody in Tamil Nadu ended up paying more for the electricity because the coal cost them more. The second thing, which is far more dangerous, is that low quality coal is burned, which means that your environment, the air that you're breathing, is that much more polluted thanks to this corruption scam allegation by Adani.
This is not a morality play or anything. This is not about having moral outrage that how could they take 1,750 crores, right? Or how could he use this to make large profits of 16,000 crores? The cost of such an exercise or such a transaction runs very, very long. Pooja spoke about pollution because, low quality coal was burnt in the Tangitco transaction. What happens also is that when you pay 4 times the market rate for coal, the cost of your power goes up, as it does in this transaction. When the cost of your power goes up, a bunch of your MSMEs in, say, Coimbatore or wherever will find that their cost of energy is higher than the cost of energy in other states or other countries. Those firms lose competitiveness. And those firms then, some of them start shutting down. In the same way that when every household in this country is struggling with inflation, now you sort of say that, okay, you know what, buddy, from now on, your cost of power is going to be greater than what it was till now. Okay, that again has material outcomes.
The beautiful thing about the counter narrative to this is that they are trying to tarnish the image of India and to take on India's big businesses by doing this. All those people who want to believe that narrative that India has a whole lot of thanks to give to US, that they are doing this investigation on behalf of us because all our agencies that were supposed to do this job has failed so badly at doing it that when the OCCRP investigation and the Hindenburg report came and then Chandrachud, our hero, was again in the court and he said that the precious court's time was being wasted because there was no well-researched things in front of the court to say that the investigation that is being conducted by SEBI into this should be now shifted to a special investigation task force. So it's very sad, after the refusal to investigate the Judge Loya death. I think this is another investigation that the court turned its back on, and I was seriously shocked why the court wouldn't do it because SEBI
But
itself
can they
is a
do
party.
it now? For example, can TDP ask for a vigilance probe? Of course, TDP is caught between the devil and the deep sea.
Yeah, any citizen in this country can ask for a probe here because there is serious allegations here, and it is in the interest of every citizen, every agency, and if a government knows to do its job to investigate this and do, some way cooperate with the US government and try to get to the bottom of it. But if your own hands are tarnished, to how much would you want to do this job?
I think there is a petition filed in the Supreme Court. Now, I think it's time for the Supreme Court to stand up and make its voice heard. There have been previous probes also. But look at how it was tweaked in Adani's favor, right? We've done a piece on how...
We should add allegedly before everything. Otherwise, we are getting a notice very soon.
Right, everything is
it was
allegedly.
allegedly
The Supreme
tweaked.
Court,
Let's see
allegedly,
how
the
everything
petition,
was
allegedly.
tweaked allegedly in Adani's favor, allegedly. Just one in the bank. Next time I forget to mention it. In a panel of 6 people, 4 of them have conflict of interest. 3 of them have worked with Adani in the past or has some interest that is aligned with Adani allegedly. So can we actually expect such a panel to be impartial allegedly?
Okay, that's too many allegedly.
Because I forgot so many before.
In the beginning.
So
Like I said, an investigation can be opened up at any point of time. Either the Supreme Court can step in and now say, okay, course correct, and say that, okay, this needs a bigger kind of a team put together. Rajshekhar, do you think any of these, what is happening in the US indictment and all of that, would ever open up a similar investigation in India and would see because there is a hopelessness when I talk about this. When you say who will investigate, no, I should name someone who has to investigate and will bring some result, right?
At this time, I think things are just tremendously broken. Even if there is an investigation, it won't produce anything. I think it's great that things, however, are getting documented. I think what is going to happen is that we are an intensely political country. At the most, at this time, cases like this will be picked up to settle political and economic scores. Okay, I don't think anybody here, look at this list of institutions, right? Which of them is acting in public interest? I don't even expect much of a blowback from institutions either, because what happened after Hindenburg is that for a while everybody was like, oh, corporate governance ka problem hai, and so on. But at some point, the investors again said that the underlying assets are healthy, they're real, this guy is bankable, and at this time his prices are low, and therefore he's a very good investment, right? So I don't know how this plays out. I think it will have impact in the long term. In the short and medium term, I don't think so. Not unless he has a real liquidity crisis, which I don't think will happen. He's too big to fail in that sense, right? Not only for the country, but for the BJP. I added allegedly at the end of it.
Yes, thank you for the allegedly. Adani is allegedly too big for him to fail. Is that where you want to place the allegedly?
Allegedly, Adani is too big to fail for India allegedly and the BJP allegedly.
Thank you. So I want to just wrap this up saying that, pointing at something which Rajshekhar said, he said, maximum this could be used for political gain, some political brownie points. But very ironically, this is one case where nobody knows how to use it politically. One, the TDP is stuck, right? Imagine Tirupati Laddu report. Even before they could read it properly, they came and did a press meet without understanding the science behind it. This one day could not react for so many days because at one side is Jagan, who you want to bamboo, but on the other side is Adani. How do you take on? After so many days, today is the first time there was a press meet by the TDP properly on this issue.
So that is the question really, right? That no matter what your political affiliation and ideology, Adani is indispensable to you.
Yeah.
How did we get here? Right? In a country this big, right? In a country this big, with so many local business families, how did we come to a point where this guy is indispensable? And what does it mean when one guy is so indispensable across political parties? Can you think of an example like this from any other country? I cannot. This is unique. Russia has Gazprom and so many others, right? What? We have only one guy. One nation, one oligarch.
One
allegedly.
One nation,
One
one oligarch, allegedly.
Look at the 5 states involved, not, like you said, not single one of them ruled by BJP. Chhattisgarh at the time Congress was in power. YSRCP and BJD were friendly parties with BJP. Then you have one Jammu and Kashmir where a lieutenant governor was in power, and then DMK. So BJP says, oh, you talk about our closeness with Adani, here you guys are in business with him.
But still, they don't want the investigation against Adani
Of
because all
course
BJP
not.
ministers have
Of
been
course not.
tweeting against it. And that, the audience, is the irony of Indian politics. That you have politicians who want to either save their own interests or the interests of their friends. Now we'll go to the next discussion, which is from Kerala. It is about the Hema committee and its aftermath. For those unaware, the secretary of the Amma Association, AMMA, which is Association of Movie Artists, Siddique, had been accused of sexual assault, not harassment or abuse, of sexual assault, and he had been booked. But recently, the Supreme Court gave him bail. Justices Bela Trivedi and Justice Satish Sharma gave that bail. What they said is that the woman in question had written on Facebook in 2018-19 when the Me Too movement was flourishing, right, about what Siddique did to her, but she did not approach the police. So what the court has asked is that if you could write on Facebook, then why could you not approach the police? And they gave bail to Siddique.
This whole way that sexual harassment and Me Too cases has doing the rounds in the Indian courts is a difficult process altogether. That is true for across the world. That most of these allegations that has been now coming out has happened years before, right? People have lived with that trauma, hasn't been able to react to it at those moments. Not because that the law wasn't there even at that point, they could go and report, but the whole system is so stacked up against you that where do you go to? You have to first process what has happened to you, seek your own mental health, seek your own, because these are women who might have gone against their family and got into this business of acting, has pursued something purely on their ambition, purely on what. So a lot of their lived experiences come into this moment that you are physically violated, right? That this is your workplace. That is one thing that even now people in the cinema industry is having trouble, because it's a very patriarchal setup that my money, I'm producing film, it's like these are all my family, we cook, we live together, we produce. That's the kind of language that you use, and rarely does this is a workplace where people come to work for, a kind of a narrative there. And so to understand that this is a workplace where I'm supposed to feel secure, where I've been violated and there is a certain kind of law in my favor, and that I go to report, and then when you go to report, there is so much of we all know what the court process is there, the kind of evidences that you have to produce, and often there are no eyewitnesses. Often if it's your statement against him, often as we know in the assault case in Kerala against this woman actor, what she has gone through, TNM's own long form story that it has very meticulously researched and put out, shows the kind of harassment that even she went to the High Court, she went to the Supreme Court saying that I am being so badly treated in a courtroom, and she got zero relief. And this was the case that with all the media attention, 24/7 headlines and reporting was happening in Kerala. And even then, that's the kind of experience that she had to go through. So this is the experience of a woman who goes to report sexual assault and goes to seek justice with the help of law in a courtroom where she's given all the protection. And then you sit there in a Supreme Court bench and you ask why you didn't come before us, why you went to Facebook.
I mean, apart from the actual act of reporting a crime like this at a police station, we've seen some instances where a court does take what they call suo motu cognizance of things, like usually civil issues, civil infrastructure. Some judges walking down the beach road and saying that there's too many fish stalls here. So the court took suo motu cognizance and they went and ordered demolition of all the fish stalls. So why isn't the court saying, okay, I can take suo motu cognizance of somebody who was not able to approach proper avenues of justice and is writing on Facebook? Why should that be a problem at all in the first case? And also, what are the structural issues of of somebody like this going and approaching a police station or a district magistrate or whoever it is to saying, I this is the problem. Nobody's discussing that so much, right?
And this point is interesting, Dhanya. I think you'd be able to speak more on it, that none of these women look at court of justice as the place where she's going to get a redressal for it. So for each woman who has gone through sexual assault, her way of getting over the trauma or getting her the justice that she needs can be different. It need not be through punishing the person. They can choose what kind of justice does they want. Right now, what the Kerala government has done is also that they have made it imperative on the victim that they have to put in an FIR, they have to put in a name, and they have to take this course of justice. It need not be like that.
So two things that judgment basically says, not judgment, actually judgment is very brief, but during the court interactions,
The oral observations.
two things stand out. One is of course this question of why did you write on Facebook? Why did you not go to the police, right? Now, to add to the points that you both made, it is not easy, and Siddique is not a very powerless person that somebody will go to the police immediately. I have interacted with that woman. She is very young and she felt very scared at that point of time. Though on Facebook you do project one veneer of bravery, right? It was not true for her.
But it can be both, right? You could be a brave person and you could still be broken inside because of
Exactly.
what
No,
happened.
I'm saying she was very scared also because she was getting a lot of threats. So people were like, on Facebook itself, if you have faced this, imagine going to the police or the court, right? That's a first refrain you get from your family and friends. So I'm assuming she got that. The second part, the court is saying that why did you not go before the Hema committee then? Okay, fine. You wrote on Facebook, but you could have gone to the Hema committee. So we did ask her, why did you not go before the Hema committee? It is a very simple reason. She hardly gets any projects. She got a project where she was shooting somewhere in North India and she couldn't come back. It's a very plausible reason, right? The fact that this is one job you're getting, eventually that's some money that you get and you don't want to come. And what will happen if you speak to the Hema committee? Hema committee was not a committee to file an FIR. Right. It was only a committee to listen to problems of women in the industry. So these women were not told that only if you go to the Hema committee will your complaint be taken seriously and an FIR be registered. So I think this whole order has been complete injustice, not just to this woman, but to every other person in the Malayalam film industry who now wants to file a complaint.
You know, what people miss out on is that you're a victim, but you also have to live your life. You have to pay your bills. You have the right to aspire to continue your career in the same field, maybe, even with the same people, if you choose to, right? And my biggest problem is there's so much of focus on the victim. How you were speaking to the alleged perpetrator later, you were smiling at him, or you were sitting and talking to him.
You invited him to
And
an
I
event.
think Siddique also has spoken about this, right? He's spoken about how she used a certain kind of language on Facebook. And my God, the gall people have to look at this entire thing of saying you should be an ideal victim where you're so, shattered and broken that you should be whimpering in one corner and not be abusive, not use profanity.
So that was actually a big problem. The fact that she used the word
No.
Allegedly. No, but it's serious. Now, the lawyer who was representing Siddique was Raman Pillai. For those not aware of Raman Pillai, he's the same lawyer who represents Dileep, who also represented Bishop Franco, who was acquitted.
His clientele is the who's who of the scum world.
Yeah, exactly.
Allegedly,
yeah. Petition which Siddique filed in the High Court says that, she projects herself as the exact words are, vulnerable middle-class single daughter who lacked the courage to report the incident and who continues to suffer from intense trauma. So he's saying she projects herself like that, but she's not like that. Why? Because she has used profanities on a couple of her lives, and that she wrote a Facebook post in which she named 14 men as people who have harassed her. So this was, I think, misrepresented to the court. And if the judges do listen, I hope they do listen, or somebody sends this clip to them. Basically, it has been misrepresented, saying that she blamed all these men of sexually abusing her. That was not the case. She named all these 14 people and she said one or two of them sent her, abuses online harassment. One was somebody she worked with, so it was workplace harassment. Another 2 people for some other reason. All these 14 men were simply men who at some point of her life had harassed her in multiple ways. So it is not all sexual assault, right? But I'm saying, even if she had put a list of 14 men who sexually assaulted her, what is the problem with that?
You remember the other case that you reported from Karnataka, the Yediyurappa complainant who was also made to feel something similar, right? Where they, all the media, at least a last section,
Including
including us initially, said that she's filed 50 complaints. You know, these large numbers that are thrown around to make it seem like, oh, she's a habitual complainer. She keeps filing complaints, so you don't have to take this seriously. Something similar being done here as well.
So in the Yediyurappa case, there was a child who had accused Yediyurappa of sexually assaulting her. When the FIR was filed, immediately we got this list which was given by the BJP of around 40 to 50 complaints that the mother had filed, right? And we were told that the mother has filed complaints against a lot of politicians, and so she's a serial complaint giver. Don't take it seriously. I mean, I'm admitting this. It was time of election. We were really busy. We could not focus on it. So I also told my colleague Shivani that, if that is the case, if the mother has given so many cases, let us just report it factually.
We did a rudimentary news copy.
Yeah, but we did not go into it. Then later the family approached us and they came down here. The mother passed away. She had cancer and she passed away. And then the family approached us and I had an interview with them. We also wrote a story on it. So basically they explained to me how this child was sexually assaulted by a relative. And when they never got justice for that case, she kept on filing more petitions. So she was not even filing petitions against politicians. She would go to the Home Minister and give a petition saying that please do something. Then there was a cop with whom she did have a sort of a problem. So she again filed complaint on that cop. She would go to the Home Minister to give a complaint. She'll go to the Finance Minister. So all that became part of this list. But eventually what I saw was a mother. She was working for a big IT company. So was the father. They were like the couple who had a Mercedes Benz and all that, right? A normal middle class family in Bengaluru, and suddenly their life is thrown apart because of this one case. And she's also branded as someone who has just given a lot of complaints. That is exactly what is happening in this woman's case, right? Yeah.
No, so that's also, we also see in Tamil Nadu, we have that multiple allegations against the lyricist, allegedly lyricist, and despite complaints, official formal complaints and like informal on social media and all that, no action. And in fact that person is very close to the party in power, right? And there seems to be nothing happening. So the question then is, what even if you do go to a police station and they take your complaint and they follow the process, what is going to happen after that?
I mean, just think of the country we are. The standard of proof required of the complainant is so high, right? Immediately, within a month, 6 months, go to every single forum that we are defining for you, right? And you look at how these institutions themselves behave. The more powerful people are going around committing all sorts of crimes, including economic crimes, what I was talking about, right? We really are a country where there's one set of standards or the burden of proof from the civilians and the citizens, and another from the people running our institutions. There's absolute lethargy in the latter set in terms of justice. You look at how the MJ Akbar case itself sort of, was handled, right? Or the Ranjan Gogoi case. So you want your people to be immaculate in how they sort of, comport themselves. You don't feel any need to have those sort of standards for yourself. I find it's quite an indictment. I mean, it's not a surprise, but it's quite an indictment.
If you're powerful, you're innocent until proven guilty. If you're a complainant, if you don't have either political clout, social clout, money clout, whatever it is, then you are guilty until proven innocent, even if you're a complainant.
But Leena, I want to ask you I want to complicate this discussion a bit, right? For example, Nivin Pauli's, the complaint against him, the police have said that the passport details are clearly saying that he was in the country when the sexual assault supposedly happened, and therefore they have given a B report in court. So for the normal public, they would say that in Siddique's case also, it can be false, right? Why should Siddique not be given relief?
So your question is that that every victim narrative can be doubted is what the Nivin Pauli incident says. I don't know if people want to believe that, like in the Adani case, like if they want to believe that this is all Congress cooking up with your friend George Soros, which
Friend? Did you just say my friend?
On a TNM show.
That's it. HinduPost.in. What is it? Observer will have articles. They will say Dhanya Rajendran exposed in a TNM podcast for being the friend of George Soros.
So I also think there is the couple of other things also. I don't know how this fits in the last, but your everyday life especially in the last few years, the last decade has become so. Actually, the microaggressions and whatever of everyday living has become so, and the very basic things like the price of oil and food and rice and things like that, or medicine going up. People don't want to spend time on what's happening till it hits you closer to home. So then, therefore, there's no larger public discourse about questions like this. Because one of the things that I hoped when the Me Too movement broke in 2018 was that we'll have some conversation on what does restorative justice look like. What does the idea of justice for survivors of sexual assault and violence, what should it look like? What does it look like now? We've never had that conversation after that. I don't think we even had the conversation when the movement was happening, right? What is the idea of justice to the survivor? What is the idea of justice to the perpetrator? How are we going to work on that? What are the processes involved in creating this conversation? We spoke about going to police station. Is there a different way of approaching an authority to do a complaint instead of police station? And then we'll always immediately say, go to an all-women's police station. But how many all-women's police station are empowered to take action on this? There'll be one women sub-constable, maybe, or one woman inspector, but then it goes up and then it stops there, right? So what is the process of justice here? What is the idea of justice here?
Yeah, even in places like in editorial rooms where I've been, or in organizations that I'm part of, there is this question that we ask, okay, so if there is an allegation raised or an allegation that is proved, how long do we keep this person out from us commissioning them, or what is the idea? Like every punishment ends at even after so many years, your life imprisonment also sort of ends. And so what is the period that we as an organization will stop engaging with this person?
So this is a question that we have mulled over at the News Minute. For example, Vairamuthu, who you were speaking about, right? At one point of time, every story we were writing, Me Too accused Vairamuthu. Then people were pointing out that for other Me Too accused, you did not write. Not because we did not want to, but we must have just forgotten that he was a Me Too accused. We don't have an Excel sheet, right, of Me Too accused from every state. We should ideally have, but that will get populated too soon. Therefore, we were like, okay, then if it is Vairamuthu in connection with a story on any harassment or like a political party, like for example, MK Stalin had greeted him on his birthday, those things like that we will mention. But if it's to do with this movie, perhaps we may keep out the detail, or we will not report about him itself, about his movie or his lyrics. So those are questions in the newsroom.
But we refuse to work with them. That needs to be pointed out. Some of the journalists, columnists, we've taken a stand of not working with them, at least.
I thought for a minute you were talking about Vairamuthu.
No, we never worked.
She meant that we don't talk with journalists who are accused of sexual harassment or assault. We had a mention of George Soros. There is a video that we had done with News Laundry, I think 2 or 3 years ago, about how ridiculous it is that everything under the sun where we question the government is then linked back to George Soros. There's no connection that George Soros has with the News Minute. We are not funded by him.
What are you saying? You don't speak to him every day?
No, I don't. In fact,
my God.
No, the question is that where does George Soros live that he has more than 24 hours to handle all of these issues?
Exactly.
He's very efficient.
No George Soros funding, but you can definitely fund. Coming to that, we will have all our subscriptions links below in the comment section, in our notes for the show. So remember, we are an ad-free platform. Do subscribe. We'll quickly move on to the next topic, which incidentally has to do with movies. The reason why I chose these two, the second topic was serious one, but still related to the movie industry. The third one, because Adani was too heavy and we should have some sort of relief also in the discussion. But I'm sure people will be very, very interested in this topic. It's about movie reviews. Now, Tamil Nadu Producers Association has now said that they don't want audience reviews for at least 48 hours. They don't want theatres to allow audience reviews. Before that, there was a Kerala amicus curiae who gave a report to the Kerala High Court that social media influencers should not be allowed to review movies for at least 48 hours. for those not aware, there is this YouTube thing where YouTube channels will stand outside a movie theater, and Pooja is coming out of the theater. They'll say, "How is the movie?"
Shove the mic in your face.
And how is the movie, Pooja?
Oh, it was horrible. I couldn't sit through it.
So Pooja is being very decent, but there was a man who came out of the theater watching Surya's movie Kangoa, and he said really nasty stuff about Surya and the movie. That in fact has become the biggest controversy, saying that this puts off people from going to the theatres. First thoughts, Nadika.
Isn't that one of the demands made, that no personal remarks should be made against people involved in the movie?
Yes, of course.
Right.
Yeah.
Where do we begin?
For those, should you start with why you are the most relevant person to talk about this in the room?
I used to write reviews for films at one point of
I think
time.
that's too modest.
Yes, go on.
I have no idea how to think about this in any simple, complicated way. I can just sort of open my head and like pour whatever is there out. See, one thing I do think is that YouTube channels are doing this, pointing a mic at an audience way, because cable TV channels used to do that before then, right? YouTube is now where cable TV channels were some 20 years ago.
Ouch.
Yeah.
Not us.
Yeah, not ENM. So cable TV channels, and we have seen Sun TV doing that, right? Except the thing with a channel, because the airtime is expensive and all that, that it would happen once a week on a Sunday. With films releasing on a Friday or something, you had at least a couple of days for people to react to a film. Even though the review may have been done immediately, there was at least 3-4 days for a lead up to a film. And in fact, there was the Sun TV's great countdown show of the past. Can I say Sun TV? Okay, whatever. Yeah. So it used to say, okay, this film has just been released, so we will not take it into our review. We will not take it into our countdown. We will just say this film is released, you go see it, and then you come back and tell us how you. So there was some kind of editorial judgment taken on whether to review a film or not. But it was true that channels still put a mic and a camera into a person's face and ask them for opinions, and people would say whatever things. So I do think exercising some restraint on random sort of reviewing in front of a theater on the day of release it can be avoided, because also what happens with films is that yes, you may not like a film immediately after you see it. You may not like the same film 24 hours after seeing it, but you still need that little bit of space to think about the film. I think this is the way I think about films. So asking somebody just immediately after coming, a lot of things could have gone wrong in the way somebody experienced the film. They may have switched off the AC for a minute or two, or the person may have wanted to go to the restroom to take a break, and all the stalls are full, and so therefore they're running to get home and relieve themselves. So you don't really know.
So while running out, they're like shitty movie.
Yeah, exactly, right. All of that can happen. So we don't know what is happening. So on the one hand, I see why producers are asking for that sort of gap between release and review. But to say that only some people are good to do this and some people are not allowed to do it.
So let's differentiate, Nadika. You are talking about normal public coming out and giving reviews. You are saying that maybe take a break, right?
I'm not saying take a break. I'm saying, do you have to do that immediately on the first day first show?
Okay. But what about the others? The problem is also regarding social media influencers. Now, how do you even define social media influencers?
I hate influencers. If you
hate the term or hate influencers?
The idea of influence and the influenza also I hate. They're called the influenza virus if you're not familiar with it.
No, I'm not.
Because they have spread so fast right now across the country. For instance, there are people now who've suddenly discovered that Chettinad is a place. And so
because of those travel vlogs going and showing the houses.
Now apparently Chettinad is now a hidden gem. Karnataka is like a
Chikmagalur is a hidden gem, it seems.
Yeah, they went to Udupi and said it's a pristine, untouched tropical paradise.
JP Nagar in Bangalore where Pooja lives is a hidden gem.
Don't come.
So
okay, go on.
The influenza thing is a little bit of a problem. But again, I would exercise caution in saying you are not allowed to do it. Maybe have a moratorium on how you are going to do it. And that will have to happen over lots of discussions with other people and producers and makers and critics and associations. But to say that only because this is also something that a few years ago Suhasini Maniratnam said, not everybody can review film. How is that? How is that true, right? Anybody, if you want me to come and watch your film, you should allow me to critique a film.
Reviewing a piece of art is a great, amazing talent that you have to credit as good as the work of art itself. And so when I read an Anna Vetikad review, she's a good friend too, became a friend after I became an admirer of her. The first time I saw her at a Network of Women in Media conference, I just ran up to her and said, Anna, I'm a big fan. And she just looked at me and she just walked off. And she can't believe that she did that to me now.
Look at you, what a bad friend telling people about this.
She was like, everyone was like, the first time Anna Vetikad was in a Network of Women in Media conference, people were just all around her admiring her. And I'm like, what a talent to write review of a movie. Because Anna herself says this in some of her reviews, that it's a sum total of your life experiences that you bring in when you watch a movie and say. And like Dhanya narrated to me an incident where the Bahubali director was like very seriously offended when she took apart the Bahubali movie, right? And
yes. I had a personal experience. I'll come to that. Yes.
Right. So and the film industry really depends on these kind of reviews. It works in their favor, a good review and a bad review, a little bit of trashing, and they are the reason. In another Anna Vetikad conversation that I've been part of, I've heard her say this, that they're the reason why so many social media influencers, YouTube people throng film screenings and not serious reviewers get invited, but they create this kind of a hype that the first day opening that a movie receives. They have been, the fertile ground that they have grown on is these producers and these distribution agencies themselves. And now when it comes to bite their own back, they are offended.
So for the film Kangua, the producers of the film themselves agree that the first 10-15 odd minutes, when there was an open letter to people and all that, the first 10-15 odd minutes was not well done and there was too much noise and the sound mix was not great. So they've accepted the faults that the public have leveled against the film itself. After that, to say you can't come in and review is actually not a good way to go about it, right? Because we've seen a film like Tangalan, Paranjit Sangalan, which released a few months ago. Everybody did complain that the audio mix of Tangalan was not great. And the producers took note of it and redid the sound mix and re-released the film after that, after taking into it. The same producers of Kangua, the people who were backing Kangua also had, people watched their film Meiya Aragan, and there was complaints of it's too long and the theatrical run was too long. And so they took notice of it and I disagree with the editing post-release of a film. And I disagree with the fact that the film was long enough, because I don't think it was long. It is perfectly done film. Meiya Aragan hit every point that I would like a film to hit me on. But they did and went and released a shorter cut of the film. So you're okay with accepting criticism if it's sort of in the nature that you want criticism to be, but you're not okay with if you think so then my question is, were there other considerations behind this sort of refusal to accept criticism?
Actually, Indian 2 is one of the movies mentioned. Yeah. And as somebody who was subjected to Indian 2, I can tell you that
my condolences.
You subjected yourself.
So
my condolences.
Yeah. I mean, no amount of, beautifying it, my favorite phraseology, putting lipstick on that pig, would make me like that movie. Thank God I didn't spend money. It was on OTT that I watched. But my entire point is this, right? It is in public domain. When art or whatever it is in public domain, everybody has a right to praise it, criticize it,
and you have to face it.
And you have to face it.
You have to eat, as they say, eat humble shit.
It's the film industry which encouraged the YouTubers and continues to do that. Yeah. So when it's convenient for them, they are happy with them. When it's inconvenient, they are like, stop these reviews, right? But I want to ask again, can we really differentiate a social media influencer? For example, the amicus curiae report in the Kerala High Court said, it took the names of Anupama Chopra and Bharadwaj Rangan and said that, look, these are actual film critics who are also part of association. I think there's a Film Critics Guild of India. They do good reviews, but there are these other people who do review carpet bombing, saying negative stuff. Those reviews should have a moratorium. But can we really start differentiating people like that? Who is a film reviewer and who is not? Who is just a social media influencer?
I don't see. The thing is, somebody like a Bharadwaj Rangan, or also, at some point they would have started somewhere. With the Bharadwaj Rangan and Anupama Chopra, they started with like a Hindu or a Indian Express, right? what to say. That was also the point that we used to say of blogs and all that, right? The person who was writing a good review on a blog would then be hired by a digital media organization to do the same thing for them. So what is the entry criteria? You can't put bars on this. Of course, there'll be some varying qualities, but that also comes from experience. You can't expect someone who's been doing reviews for 20 years to match up to someone who's an enthusiast about film, right? There are a lot of people in social media who went and studied film. Right, your YouTube channels are full of those people who went and studied film at a government film school or one of those private film schools, and who have not been able to crack it into the film industry because the process of getting into the film industry is so their way of doing that is to like go through this way,
crack a few films,
not just crack, but actually work on YouTube, do their own production to show that they can do production, right? And in the process, because all of us come with our own ideologies that we've picked up and what we like and we not like. I think it's perfectly fine to say, whatever is the review, you take, and this is the whole old Tirukural thing, right? Which is like whoever says whatever, it's your ability to find the good thing or the truthful thing in what other people are saying. So why can't film producers do that?
No, this also, why should everybody aspire to be with the Hindu?
Exactly.
I want to be independent. I'll run a YouTube channel, say what I want.
Yeah.
I may not be a film critic. I may be a reviewer.
Yeah.
I have my place in the
And
society.
what is the difference between a reviewer and a critic is something nobody has defined yet.
Right. I mean, unless you talk about how great the cinematography is, how the lighting is and all of that.
That doesn't make you a critic at any point. That doesn't make you a reviewer at any point. In my reviews, I write about film. I write about writing of the film. I write about the cinematography. I write about the direction. I write about production and all of those things. But that doesn't make me a critic yet. So who is a critic is a question that is still left to answer. How do you define a critic? Who is the good critic? Who is the bad critic? Who is a good reviewer? Who is a bad reviewer? We don't have definitions for this. We don't have working models for this.
Is there really any proof that these reviews cause losses? Because that is what these producers are continuously saying, that because of the review, people are not coming for the movie.
No, Dhanya, I think it's obvious. We all go for movie because word of mouth. I can remember when there was a phase when I used to watch movies, and then we went for this one stupid movie that had Mohanlal and Mammootty and Juhi Chawla.
Hari Krishnans, and people were queuing outside the theatre because Mohanlal and Mammootty, and then the North Indian sensation Juhi Chawla was, and we couldn't get tickets. And the next door was playing Summer in Bethlehem, which starred the next number 2 Suresh Gopi and Jairam and
Manju Warrier, of course, the most bankable actor. But then nobody was queuing up in front of that theatre, of course, because these two superstars. And then we went, and that was a great cinematic experience that we came back from. So the word of mouth really pushes people to queue up in front and theatres, and how long it lasts. There have been so many beautiful movies which haven't found the kind of audiences that it should have found because there was no great reviews written about them in those initial phase when it was running in the theatre. And then it comes on an OTT platform and people watch it and say, oh, what a beautiful movie it was.
But I think the OTT platform, the deals that they have also depend on all these, the first few days of how it's done.
Sure.
So it has a dominance.
So do you think
effect.
there's really a grouse that people are not going to theatres because of the bad reviews?
See, the way I think about it is, of course, there's going to be some dampening of enthusiasm for the film if there's a immediate bad review, and especially if it's coming from all these channels. But the thing is, it's always happened, and if the film is able, there's always the make or break of a thing, right? If I can see a film despite all of that, and then it picks up. That's what we called a cult classic back in the day. Great films that we think of, like something like a Hey Ram or whatever.
Basha.
Dil Se.
No, I'm not going to say Basha.
Come on. Dil Se.
Okay, Dil Se.
Who invited Nadika? You're not agreeing with anything that we are saying.
Okay, so
a
film like Hey Ram didn't do well at all in the theatres when it released, right? But then slowly it achieved what is called a cult classic status, right? So therefore you have other avenues that open for the film producer. So they may have lost money initially, but that's also probably because the film business is changing now. What used to run for 2 weeks is now that your multiplexes don't let run for more than 3 days. That's because there are a lot more films being produced. There's more competition. A film is not your only source of entertainment now. Even in a cineplex, you have some multiple things going on. you have a playpen at some corner. There's some stand-up comedy on one screen. So it's problem with the business.
Losses, my point is, if it does make losses, isn't that the whole game?
That's the point,
right?
So you course correct and then you make a better film the next time.
Okay, so to end this conversation, though I always say that I don't know much about movies, I did not know that Hari Krishnan's and Summer in Bethlehem released the same time. But let's not forget, Summer in Bethlehem had that beautiful role played by Mohanlal. He comes as Niranjan for like 15 minutes, and I think he also
the entire
walked away.
generation of people named the kids Niranjan after that.
Yeah, he walked away with. So see, my movie knowledge is very 1980s, 1990s. I also want to add, with all full responsibility here, that as a journalist and editor, I have always thought the movie industry is most corrupt, which is one reason why I've kept away a lot from the movie reporting, because there's so much of bribes given to people, and even if it's not bribe, there's so much of intimidation. For example, there are these simple things. Why we don't at the News Minute do interviews of actors before a movie comes out. We do only very few in which we make it very clear that if the movie is bad, we will still give a bad review, right? So if you go for any of these events where we're interviewing these people, they sort of think it's obligatory for you to then write a good review. And just because you mentioned about Anna Vatikard's article, this was called The Rape of Avantika, the character played by Tamanna in Bahubali. So she wrote about how that song with Prabhas and Tamanna was actually the rape of Avantika, and I think she won a Ramnath Goenka for that story. I had interviewed S.S. Rajamouli many years later at an event, and I asked him, how do you look back at the criticism that your movies were also problematic this way? He said that review really upset him, and he didn't take it well, basically. So a lot of these people don't take it well. That's why their egos are very hurt when some random guy on the road is like, yaar avan yedhukku movie pandra, so their
and
egos
the
are hurt.
irony is that you're making a product for public consumption. You can't afford to be so thin-skinned, right, at the end of the day.
Yeah. So
that reminds me of a dear friend who we'll not name, but who made a great film called Arjun Reddy and all that. Who any comment on Twitter about the second film from that person, he would come online and like argue, and he had the entire bot army troll farm to say why your understanding of the film was wrong.
We'll not say his name, but it rhymes with manga.
Yeah.
Yes. Okay.
But it is also true that for all of these people, it's their, it's a lot of money and resources and time that they put in. And it's also a lot of their vanity project too, right? These people are obsessed about their look, how they speak, how they are portrayed in the people's perception and all of that. So all of that is a terrible mix to give them honest review. So it's a very industry specific problem.
Yeah, and let's also not forget that there are dishonest reviews also. There must be some big superstar paying a YouTuber to thrash somebody else's movies.
There is definitely the range of, as in anything, you have a very good amateur reviewer and you have a very bad amateur reviewer, you have a very good credible reviewer and you have a very bad credible reviewer. You have this range anywhere. But I also think that you can't take these things too personally if you're a film producer, and you can't take these things personally if you're a public personality like a YouTube person. If some producer saying your reviews are kaka, then you have to bite it and you make a better review next time. Right? That's because you put yourself out there in the public. So I'm sure somebody's going to say, my presence on this podcast is very similar to that.
He's a kaka.
He's very kaka. Who knows?
I haven't heard the word kaka in a long time. That's what we tell
kids,
is
right? Too grown up.
Yeah, kaka. Okay, so the kaka parts of the podcast are over. Now we go to the recommendations.
Allegedly kaka parts.
Yes. Pooja, what is your recommendation for the week?
I want to recommend this movie called The Post. It's from 2017, but it's set in 1971. It's a brilliant movie on how it's set during the Vietnam War, and it talks about how there was a leak, and it shows that consecutive presidents made sure that the war is dragged on because they can't come out like losers out of that war, and how Washington Post deals with it. New York Times and Washington Post. I recommend that you watch it.
There are also many books on the Post and how the rest of the media in America actually took up that story after the Post did. Nadika?
I think I'll recommend, this is a slightly older series. It's called The Person of Interest. It aired in the early 2010s, I think 2013 types. But it's about a person who builds a AI superpower surveillance AI. and then the government takes it over, and then the problems from it. And it's a fantastic series. It ran for some 8 or 9 seasons. Because it's an American series, there's some 25 episodes per season and all that. It's beautiful. So it has this person who made the AI, sort of a secretive CIA trained assassin type person, and a bunch of other people, and it raises question of Big Brother states. It raises question of police surveillance and things like that, but also questions of how do you resist these things? How do you retain your agency in a world where everything is monitored? And I'm reminded of it now because lots of things that we see around us now is sort of AI powered and sentient, and everything that we do is being recorded somewhere to train machines. So I think it's something that we should revisit and watch. It's called Person of Interest. I think it's available. It may have gone off the OTT channels, but I'm sure it's somewhere to see.
Yes. So we were discussing about journalism and business, and also developmental journalism a little bit. So I'm going to recommend a cult classic here, P. Sainath's Everybody Loves a Good Rot. I don't know how many young journalists or how many young people who's watching this would have read that, but it's a recommended read for anybody who wants to know how development money gets diverted, or relief money gets diverted in government programs. And the second, I'll make 3 recommendations. Second is again Josie Joseph's very brilliant Feast of Vultures about how businesses go about in this country. And third is, because we talked about Me Too and its structural issue, it's an interesting thing I was doing. My favorite pastime is reading wiki pages. So somehow yesterday I came across that Adam Lovelace, the lady who was reason behind computing, and her father was Lord Byron. And I was also reading on this Frankenstein monster creation, and the author who wrote it, her mentor was also Lord Byron. Then I was like, what an amazing man, like 2 really iconic woman trained under his mentorship. And I just went to look up, and I know that he's a poet and all that. I looked at his personal life, which is the story of...
Are you recommending his wiki page?
I'm recommending the wiki page because I think the best of understanding how patriarchy works is to go in history and look back at all these men who have played such big social figures and powerful points in history that they have been figures of, and look at their personal life, how bad they have been to women around them, and then you'll start understanding maybe the Me Too movement a little bit better.
First time I'm thinking somebody would be recommending a wiki page to all the Wikipedia editors who are probably in trouble in India. So
contribute to them as well.
Go read the ANI case against Wikipedia people. So I want to recommend something, but Rajshekhar, owing to bad internet, has had to drop off. We'll of course record his recommendation separately, but I want to recommend the investigation that he did this year, which I think was one of the most outstanding pieces of journalism that has been produced in India. It's called The Cost of Reliance's Wildlife Ambitions. It's a 2-part series on the Vantara Zoo, which is like a huge project of the Ambanis. Adani, Ambani. So it came up in the Himal mag. It's online. You just have to register and then you can read it. I know that Rajshekhar researched for that story for almost a year and of course many months to write it. And Himal is a very good magazine, a very good platform. So register, read it, and also contribute to Himal, because we really need media like Himal to thrive. I don't think they operate out of India, which is also one reason why they could carry that investigation.
Yeah, I just finished reading this book by Robert Fisk, Night of Power. It sort of follows from his previous and sort of tells us the history of the Middle East from the Iraq war onwards.
That's the end of recommendations for today and end of South Central. Thank you for joining us.